Hey everybody, welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and I am back live on Zoom, I guess, live from Los Angeles for another exciting, thrilling episode of G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. This is the podcast where we watch every episode in sequential order and comment on it mystery science style, and I'm very happy to reach into the Wayback Machine and bring back a pal, a compadre, a high school chum of mine, and he's a regular listener, and he's a patron of the show, everybody. Mr. Mark Silgalis calling in from Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Mark, welcome to Joe on Joe.
You got me blushing already, and we haven't even gotten into the show, Joe.
I haven't even described you yet as a man of the world. You don't even know that's where I was going with that. Mark,
just a man, not the most interesting man, just a man of the world.
Just a man of the world. Listen, it's better than being a man of like a small Balkan community. Okay, let's just leave it at that.
I'll give you that.
So welcome to the show, Mark.
Happy to be here, man. I'm very excited about this. Love the show. Been listening for a long time.
Thank you so much, man. You are a big. I dislike the phrase comics nerd. Like I just I never liked it. I never enjoyed the word nerd, and I still kind of don't. But
when the shoe fits,
wear the hell out of it, and you kind of are. Like we used to go to Comic Cons together. Chicago, you're wearing an Iron Man shirt, of course. We would go to the Wizard World and previously Chicago Comic Con and then Wizard World Comic Con and all that for years in the summertime with our friends Jim Houlihan and my cousin Mike.
Good times.
Good times had by all. And you were way into G.I. Joe, and I don't think I was that into G.I. Joe at that time, so I don't know that we've ever talked G.I. Joe.
I don't think we did at the time. I think it may have come up here and there, but I mean, I was way into it. The toys, the books. I mean, especially the books. I mean, I had, unfortunately, that part of my collection went away a long time ago. But I mean, I had everything from issue 1. I mean, I started reading them. I think in the second year it was out, and then went back and got all the back issues, and never looked back.
That's so great. Yeah, the time we were hanging out, I was definitely still into G.I. Joe, but I had all the issues. So I wouldn't have been ever hunting them down at any of the conventions that we went to. It was it was just something that I was continuing to read. And whenever we were at the conventions, like those were the years I was getting like, let me think. I was definitely getting old X-Men, like Cockrum X-Men and Byrne X-Men and stuff like that, and building that out, and like Roger Stern's Spider-Mans and the Byrne Supermans. Like that's the stuff I was reading
Absolutely.
during those years.
You were definitely more into DC, or a bit more into the DC side of things at the time, I remember, and then I was definitely more of a Marvel fanboy. And but hey, let's just say that we both were huge Image Entertainment fans, and that's why we were at those cons. Really,
listen, I named my firstborn Deathstrike, or was it Death Blow? Death Blow or Deathstrike? Deathstrike was the X-Men. I named my firstborn child Death Blow, and there's a comic issue of, I believe it is Death Blow, where on the cover it says literally "rub the blood." Mark, rub the blood. It was like a scratch and sniff or something cover, and they wanted to show you that they put real blood texture on this cover. It says "rub the blood."
That's some classic stuff there from Image.
You're welcome, America. Do you remember the Shadowhawk? Do you remember Shadowhawk?
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, I believe I got the ash can edition at one of the Comic Cons.
They did a cover where it was like the biggest gimmick cover I've ever seen. It folds out. I guess it like top to bottom, so I guess that'd be vertically. And it is a fold out of his arms, and viewers can't see me doing this, but his arms popping straight up to remove his helmet because he's like revealing his identity to people. So I've never
missed that one.
Oh, I've never seen a cover like it before, and it literally folds out vertically, not sideways, but straight up, and it's just his head popping off the helmet off his cover. Like that's apex gimmick covers.
Yes. Now I will say this. One of the best memories of two of the best memories of Comic-Con that I ever had where you were present. You introduced me to the Artist Alley, for one.
Sweet.
Just at the cons, those were always awesome. And you kind of got me into the independent side of comic books. And then the other was, of course, I think we went twice to roasts of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
At least once. Yes, at least once.
I mean,
it was amazing.
Actually running into Stan Lee in the lobby of the hotel.
I think I've told that story on the show, and yes. Yeah. I don't know if you remember. I remember I had hands full of mints because I thought it was funny to steal giant gobs of candy, and we turned around and there's Stan and my hands are full, and I have to hide the candy, and the only thing that came out of my mouth was, "Hey, it's the voice of the Hulk cartoon." That's right, true believer. Yeah.
Oh my.
That Stanley roast was amazing, and I wish I remembered more of it. I was too young, sober, not like that kind of remembering. We're just too young and stupid to understand the weight of it. Julie Schwartz was there.
Oh God, there's so many
luminaries. I think Peter David hosted it.
Yes. Was it David or was it? God, I cannot remember the name of the artist on the X-Men for a long. JR.
I don't think he hosted it. I think he was there, but we sat at a table. I think we sat at a table with and she's an amazing talent. Bright red, fizzy, real kinky curly hair. Jill Thompson. I think Jill Thompson sat at our table.
I think you're right.
Yeah. There was it was an amazingly crazy night. I don't know what we were doing there, but I wish I had a better memory of it.
I remember a lot of it. Some of the stuff went over my head because I just, was young and I didn't get some of the jokes, but I remember it being a very good time and then getting to talk to all these people that were just like legends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And did we have a pen to have them sign anything? Of course not.
Of course not. No, I don't think I got for that dinner. I think I was so focused on don't be that guy that asks for autographs. Meanwhile, Marty Nodell was hanging out and Julie Schwartz was there and who knows who else. It was a roast of Stan freaking Lee in 1995, maybe, I want to say.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it was crazy awesome. And listen, if anyone listening was there or knows what happened at that roast, fill me in because I was there and don't remember. So what's your nerddom look like today? Do you still read comics? I know you follow the movies.
Yes, I definitely follow the movies. I don't read monthlies anymore. I just don't have the room to keep them and the wherewithal to keep up with it. I have 2 5-year-old twins, so that kind of takes up a lot of time.
Oh yeah, you do, and we're gonna talk about that in 1 second because that is G.I. Joe centric, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. There's a little tease for you.
Do
you go digital with your books?
I don't go digital. I actually just buy trades of storylines that I hear that are good. And I do go digital a little bit, but it's just not where I have a lot of time to read monthly stuff. So I end up picking up story arcs here and there, and then just keeping up with the movies almost is almost a full-time job now as it is. I do watch a lot of animation as well.
Oh yeah, like what?
I'm catching up on Batman the Animated Series yet again.
It's exciting. They're about to come out with a Blu-ray.
Yes.
They've apparently cleaned them all up. They're enhanced editions. I'm very excited about this.
But all of the DC movies that
they're really good.
Great stuff like Gotham by Gaslight, which was one. That book doesn't get enough credit. That was revolutionary for its time. It's
one of my favorites. Gotham by Gaslight, and what was the Holy Terror with Norm Brayful, who did the art. I loved those 2 books.
But all of those. And I've even started getting the kids watching them. And you'll appreciate this. My kids absolutely love the Batman TV series from the 60s.
Yes.
We have gone through it twice, and they are 5 years old.
That's amazing. That is so fantastic. Good for you. Well, let's talk about them. So you got a little boy and a little girl twins. The girl is Audrey, correct?
Yes.
And your boy, why don't you tell listeners what his name is?
His name is it's Xander with an X.
Yeah.
and they're twins, and their names have the same amount of letters in them, and they fight all the time, and some of them have sometimes they have phantom injuries.
Do they finish each other's sentences?
They talk all the time. I can't tell.
Have you ever seen them jump out of a high rise and do acrobatics down the flagpoles along the side of the building?
It wouldn't surprise me in the least.
So I'll take that as a yes. You named your son after a Tomax Zaymot theme. Admit it. Admit it now to the world. You did.
Maybe not the world. Maybe this small world. I will.
Hey, listen. Got a lot of listeners out there.
Enough. But you know,
that's really great.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's really great. I love it. I love it so much. So G.I. Joe, man, what first got you into G.I. Joe? Was it the comic or was it the toy? Like, what was your first walk into a room and what is that moment?
It was walking into Service Merchandise.
Yes.
Right after Thanksgiving, seeing the racks of the original Joes.
You're talking like 87th and Cicero Service Merchandise?
Yes.
Oh,
that
yes.
is the exact one, sir.
Thank you. That's a little local Chicago talk, my friend.
And just seeing the racks of them. And I mean, as every kid was, heavy into Star Wars. But it was a little bit of... It was in a lull, a Star Wars lull for new toys for that. And
yeah,
then
Jedi was about to pop, and the toys died right after Jedi.
Yeah, and just seeing like all those, I was like, "What is this?" And then like, I remember seeing it was the first one that caught my eye was Breaker.
Yes.
I was like, "What is this?" Like what's going on? And then I saw like Snake Eyes, and I'm like, the only one I didn't see was Scarlet on the rack, but I may have just been dazzled by the Mobat or something else. But I can still see that very clearly in my head, the fluorescent lights, the high ceilings there, and then just it was like a 4-foot tall rack, but like from the top of it to the floor, just covered in figures. And then the rest of the aisle was all the vehicles. It was, not that there were that many. You had Ram, you had
50 copies of everything,
the flat cannon and everything like that. But just a very, very distinct, important memory to me.
That's I love it. Yeah, I think that's, whether it's G.I. Joe or He-Man or whatever it is, that thing that burns in your brain, it just does. Like, I remember, I have my moment like that too. I remember the end cap, or at least the memory representation of what it was, and it's fun. It's a fun, warm little memory for you,
Yeah, but then after that, it was very quickly into. I think the show came out the next year, but. I don't think I was quite reading comics yet, but I just couldn't wait for the show to come out because the commercials were pushing that.
Yeah. Did you have any favorite characters or vehicles or like any lines that you like were really digging, like when Battle Force 2000 came out, if you were still into it then?
I wasn't still that was right around when I dropped off with the toys. I've always
you and me both. Yeah.
I still to this day, when I walk into a Target or RIP Toys R Us, I still, check out the aisle, with the G.I. Joe stuff.
And not just for any stray kids.
Right.
Awkward.
A little.
At least that's what I tell my wife.
But no, I think my favorite line was I think it was the third round of figures that came out with Snake Eyes with the new visor and just that whole cast of characters, and you had they had all kinds of snow vehicles and water vehicles like the water moccasin and the snowcat and like all that stuff. I love that whole like series of stuff and that whole thing like. And I think like in the show by that time, Flint had come on, who had become one of my favorite characters, and I think that was that era right there was probably my favorite. And with the first I guess the second season of the show. Those are my guys, and I think my favorite probably of all those was Lifeline.
Oh yeah. Why did you gravitate towards Lifeline? I love him. I think he was an amazing looking figure.
It was, for one thing, his dossier, his character card. I always found intriguing. The pacifist, but yet he was still carrying a 45.
He was.
But I think what solidified it for me was the episode that showed the Viper.
Yes, the Viper is coming.
Yes. But I mean,
so you fall on the side of, it's a hot debate. You like it. You fall on the positive side.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My
Good.
sister and I still talk about that to this day.
Yeah, that was one of my. I love doing that episode of the podcast. There were 3 of us on, and it was pro, con, and in the middle. So it worked out well. I'm very pro Viper. I think the Viper is coming is just absolutely fantastic.
It is one of the best long played jokes that I've ever seen that did not involve one bit of profanity.
Yes, it's like that's the joke that Coach would have been a part of on Cheers.
Yes.
Like that's exactly what that joke is. It's so great. Well, I think you and I are really simpatico in the taste of eras. We're the same age, and I think that is absolutely my favorite era too, which is a perfect setup because this episode has nothing to do with that. However, today we are watching an episode called BIOK. It's written by Christy Marks, and it is a really good episode with some of the worst animation I've seen on any episode of G.I. Joe. I am so disappointed with the level of animation. I thought my DVD was broken as I watched this. I actually rewound it. I was like, I didn't see what I just saw when I sat through a 3 to 4 second freeze frame of no motion at all while Lady J was talking to us. And that is not an error. That is part of the animated episode. There is and multiple instances of that throughout this. So we're gonna get a little nitpicky on this one, guys. And very much for my money, I'm very much going to stress it is not Christy Marks' fault. It's a cool concept. And
this whole story is fantastic. It really is. And I'm convinced, and this will become kind of obvious later, that somebody has something going on with Matt Groening from The Simpsons, and they've been doing some time traveling together.
Oh,
that's all I'm going to say.
I'm excited. I'm excited to hear that. And you know what else I'm excited about, Mark? Our sponsor. We've got an official sponsor for Joe on Joe. What? Yes. Absolutely. I want to welcome aboard Mr. Omar Spahi and his fabulous podcast. It's called Dreamer Comics Podcast. Go to dreamercomicspodcast.com to check out latest issues and episodes. You find it on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere you're listening to this. Google Dreamer Comics Podcast. You've heard Omar on Joe. He did an episode with me about a year ago. He's a good friend of mine. He's a super talented dude, and he loves comics just as much as you or I do. He's about 10 years younger than us. So he's in that exciting stage where he hasn't been jaded and burned out by life yet, Mark.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. What was great about Omar is he looked at comics and said, I want to do comics. How can I do them? Like, not just read them, but actually do them. And he put his plans in motion, and he publishes his own comics through Awesome Comics, through Awesome, it's OSSM, through Image Comics. So then he decided, I had so much fun on being on Joe, I want to do my own podcast about making comics. And he has done that.
Fantastic.
It's totally true. He gets people like Ross Ritchie, who's the publisher of Boom. Let's see, he had Kyle Higgins on recently. I believe he's had Joe Kelly. He knows a ton of dudes because he's a great guy and people want to hang out with him because he's got a lot to love and a lot of energy to give comics. So I want all of you listeners to reach out, give Dreamer Comics Podcast a shot. It's really, really great. It's all about breaking in. It's all about those people that said, not only do I want to do this, but I'm going to chase my dream and see it through. And that's what every episode of his podcast is all about. So it's really great. I hope you guys all give it a listen. And while you're on the internet, make sure you check me out on Google and Facebook and Instagram. I guess you don't go to Google, do you? But you can send me an email, and that's on Google. joeonjoepod@gmail.com. And Facebook and Instagrams, find me at joeonjoepod. And if you enjoy this show, you can help support this show on Patreon, which is how Mark helps support the show. For only $3 a month, you can get full access to Joe on Joe Illustrated, which is our second podcast. You guys heard an episode of that last week. And just for $1 a month, you can just show some love to the Joe and Joe Show and help keep the lights on at Fort Wadsworth. It's really quite a value. So now, Mr. Mark Silgalis, are you ready? Are you ready to dig in and enjoy the episode of BIOK with me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. You guys, get your DVDs ready, and here we go. So we got to get tough is really what we learned from this, Mark.
Well, I think the sleeveless shirts will, get you there.
Yeah, sleeveless shirts, the 2 tons worth of heavy machine gun strapped to the front of your chest. How heavy duty doesn't have like a hernia? The human, although I guess, let's think about this. And you know who I'm talking about. The guy in the front, The guy was the roadblock replacement, which is, there's a reason I bring up heavy duty and roadblock and heavy machine gun replacements, because we got to get into this later in the show. But I guess his strap thing could kind of be like the vendor, you're a Cub fan, the vendor at Wrigley Field, right?
He could have lots of supports around there. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They carry the giant square tin of hot dogs on their front, Now
that was a missed opportunity for a character in G.I. Joe, was the vendor from Wrigley Field.
Okay, so we've got, this show opens with BIOK by Christy Marks. Just a guy running the battlefield with rations, tossing them out. Like, exactly. Someone's on they've been on the front. Yeah.
Peanuts.
Do you remember it's in the first issue of the comic book where Scarlet and Snake Eyes and Rock and Roll were all shot up in the desert, and it was called Hot Potato, and they had to get the tape to stalk her. And like when the story starts, they're already in the desert for a couple days, right? And they're all beat up and everything. That's when the hot dog guy comes in and just starts throwing them rations, because they can't stop shooting, but they're like, we've been here for days. And it's like, get your hot dogs. And he just throws them, and all of a sudden they're rejuvenated.
This generation of characters, I'm not familiar with them. Was this an actual Cobra pilot? Because they look like Deadshot.
Yeah, this guy does look like Deadshot, and I am not sure exactly who that is. I did not do, because BIOK, it's funny, because BIOK is a complete creation of this. I think I forgot to do a little research on who those guys are. But as we talk, I'm going to look it up. So we open, and we have one of the very, very few instances of Lady J. That's what I'm talking about right there. Do you see this? Lady J opened that car door, and the animation stopped, everybody. It just stopped for 3 seconds. It's terrible. Terrible animation. There is severe budget cuts on this episode. And did you see in that picture that they just showed? Those dudes. Oh, wait. What's going on here? Oh, see, that's who it is. They're not Cobras. They were in disguise.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I watch
animation. Stop.
No, yeah.
Right here.
Right there, yeah. It is. There's no animation on that scene. I'll watch these episodes, and I'll watch them a couple times, and then my mind will just completely blank out on the fact that those three were the Joes in disguise. I'm not even kidding you. I've seen so many of these, Mark.
I'm sure.
My brain just kind of melts a little bit. Oh boy.
Here we go, BIOK.
Yeah, so here we see BIOK. And unfortunately, BIOK appears to be located in the World Trade Center. Did you catch that?
I did not the first time.
Yeah, that was the drawing of New York and the World Trade Center. I kind of wish they had stuck with Enterprise City and the
actually,
Tomax and Zamox.
BIOK's not there. BIOK's not there. That's just where they're interfacing with them.
Oh, right. Yeah, BIOK's off in the cloud. Here's the other thing that ends up getting shortcutted in this show. So now, at the start, and this is the really egregious one, I think. At the start of this episode, they animate BIOK with a full face, right? Some kind of Tron-looking, this face, right?
Lawnmower Man.
Lawnmower Man. Great, yeah, great example. By the end of the episode, they end up using a smiley face thing for him. You know what I mean?
I got a whole thing for that, man. We will get into that.
Okay. But I didn't think there was any good reason to go to that, except to save on animation is where I'm going with that.
It's time travel, dude. I'm telling you.
Okay. Oh,
Just
good.
wait.
Well, that's okay. We're gonna hold on to that then. So, were you collecting when Destro and Cobra Commander had this look, or had you gotten out of it?
This was right at the end. I think I had the gold Destro.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I had the Cobra Commander in this guy's.
Yeah, I had Commander, but I did not have the gold Destro. Recently, a friend of the show, Matt Kyle, he was going through his collection and he hooked me up, so I have the gold Destro now. But back then, I remember being turned off a little bit by gold Destro, but now in retrospect, I think he looks really sharp.
So at this point in the story, they've hacked all the computers in the world with this one AI.
Yes. So now
Cobra's got some hacking skills.
They do. So it's either well, listen, here's what we can prove, Mark. It's either Cobra doing the hacking or a 400-pound guy in his basement. Even though I'm seeing it on the screen right now, I can't tell for sure exactly who's hacking into the computers around the world.
I think it's the October Guard. I'll be honest with you, Ivan Donutsky.
It might be the October Guard. It might be a 400 guy in his basement. I kind of don't trust the intelligence sources.
The figure came with a couch, a laptop, and a pizza.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. Yeah, and an address to the pizza parlor where children were getting touched in all the wrong places. Yeah, I think that makes about as much sense as anything else.
Sure.
Now, do you see this guy's the BIOK's face is getting like more human, and I can't tell if that's on purpose to show like the AI is evolving, or it's because they stopped animating it.
Or is he starting to look more like Destro?
Well, yeah, like he's losing, like he lost all the. I guess they would these have been raster?
Yeah.
You were a computer tech. Would these have been like raster graphics at the time?
It would have been at the time.
Yeah, but do you see now he looks more like a lawnmower man kind of thing.
It looks like he was in The King and I.
Yeah. A little Yul Brenner going on. So now this is Skyforce, and Skyforce is one of those sub teams.
Yeah, I looked them up. Very interesting. They're all of the rank E8 and E9, and actually the leader here, what's his name in the blue? He's actually a lower rank than two of the other guys, but he's the leader of the group.
Yeah, the G.I. Joe hierarchy was always cuckoo.
Yeah,
like the fact that Duke wasn't it like Duke in charge, but there were other people that outranked him.
Oh yeah, half the Joes.
Yeah, there was all kinds of that stuff happening on in the Joes. But you see BIOK's face. It's just a little too normal and fleshy. But then eventually we get to we don't want to do time travel too much. So I'm going to bring this up now, and this is the first episode that I've recorded since I discovered this, and I need to come clean, listeners. So we do our G.I. Joe. Joe on Joe nicknames, right? And so I've been doing that for well over a year. And my name is Deep Dish. And I love being Deep Dish. I think it's hilarious. I love pizza. It works for me, right? Well, Mark, have you ever seen the show Community?
Of course. Yes, I have.
You have. Have you seen the G.I. Joe episode of Community?
Of course I have.
We'll be right back. Today's Filecard feature is on the Sky Patrol leader codenamed Skydive. His file name is Linton N. Felix, and his primary military specialty is the Sky Patrol leader. His secondary military specialty is personnel administration. His birthplace is Pensacola, Florida. We're going to revisit both of his specialties before the end of this. I got issues here. Skydive spent 10 years on staff at the Ranger School in Fort Benning and earned a reputation for being the toughest NCO in the program. He would skip breakfast just so he wouldn't spoil his appetite for eating snakes and water bugs. A 20-mile force march is a piece of cake for this guy. Ranger trainees hate his guts when he puts them through the ringer during the program. In time, most come to appreciate his devotion to, quote, train hard and fight easy, especially after they've fought their first hand-to-hand battle. Quote, Sky Patrol operates deep within enemy territory, cut off from supply and support. There can be no margin for error when you're that far behind the lines. One mistake in your history. Only a battle-hardened veteran can pull off a mission without a hitch. That's just the type of leader you'll get with Skydive. The most successful head knocker in the patrol. So let's revisit. His primary military specialty is the Sky Patrol leader. That can't be his primary military specialty. It's got to be like Skydive or something like that, or airborne or something along those lines. just because he leads the group of dudes, that can't be his primary specialty. And his secondary specialty of personnel administration, the reason I have a problem with that, on every episode we've seen of the show, Skydive is a jerk. So how can he be specialized in personnel administration? I don't know if that's all on purpose, but it's really funny because both those things are crazy, Tom. Just like the rest of the Sky Patrol, he came with the sweet silver parachute. I like Sky Patrol. He also got a silver helmet, silver weapons. It was that chrome look that the vehicles had that the characters kind of carried over. I dig his mustache. I think he's a little plain, and I think I said this with the last Sky Patrol, where their outfits are all a little bit plain, like 2 or 3 colors. There's not a whole lot of detail within that, but he's part of the larger group, and that I'm a fan of, and each member of the group had their own color, which I'm a fan of. So his is like a deep blue. Altitude was the green and the orange, and and looking at this picture, everyone's got their own distinct look, but they all kind of look the same without giving them like some giant X-Men style standard uniform. So I'm down with Skydive. I just don't know that I'm down with this Filecard. So Skydive, Linton, and Felix, we salute you. Well, and this is an absolute honest confession here. I never watched that episode because even though I was doing this podcast and people would say, oh, you got to watch that G.I. Joe episode, it's great. And I knew Bill was a part of it, Bill Ratner, who's been a guest on this show, and he's a friend and he's amazing. I never watched it because I wanted to enjoy the show Community on its own in order. Like listen, look at what I've done with this podcast. Like I'm the guy who does everything in sequential order. That's what I do. I never watched the G.I. Joe episode. I finally finished binging. I started about a month ago and binged through Community, which is an amazing show. It's too bad that it got derailed by everyone leaving and canceling and all the drama that had there. But I finally watched the G.I. Joe episode. And no one that's listened to this podcast that has also seen that show has ever mentioned to me Deep Dish is the nickname of one of the jokes that they tell on the show.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. There's the moment when the guys in the context of the episode, they get thrown into a jail. I'll try to get Lady J out and meet you at Depot 18. And they're cracking jokes, and they point at all these other random made up G.I. Joe guys, and they're like, this guy's named this and that guy's named that, and one of the joke characters is named Deep Dish.
Fantastic.
And I absolutely never saw that, but I totally plagiarized Community with my name of being Deep Dish. So I need to come up with a new name is what I'm saying. I can't conceivably keep using it in good faith. I feel terrible about it. I'm so not the guy that's going to rip something off and I have no idea. Literally, I love pizza and I'm a big dude.
I mean, you got to find something else in the same vein, I'm guessing.
So I've got some ideas. And here's the deal. I'm going to save this. I'll save this. I may end up, let's just put it this way. I'm going to put a caveat out there that I may end up, in a few months, I have another idea, but I may end up changing it. Oh, this is exciting on the show. The Sky Patrol Havoc, they just launched their hovercraft thing, which you rarely see used on the show. You see the Havoc a lot on the show, but you rarely see them jump into their hovercraft and take off. Which finally, that's the only thing about the Havoc that earns a space on Sky Patrol, because Sky Patrol is about being in the sky, not being a giant tank on the ground. Anyway, so I need to come up with a name. I feel like I want to stay being a heavy machine gunner, but I just had a thought as we were talking. What if I went by the name Old Style?
Oh, that is fantastic.
I think I like the name Old Style because it was my favorite beer, and it kind of represents everything I'm all about, like retro, living in the past, like appreciating the past. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
and does it say anything more Chicago than Old Style?
Right? I think it still captures Deep Dish, the spirit of Deep Dish. So in a way, it's like, this is why I was laughing about Heavy Duty. It's like when they lost the trademark to Roadblock and they had to use Heavy Duty instead for a few years until they sorted out the Roadblock situation.
Right.
So I think my new name is Old Style.
I'm liking it. I'm liking it.
Yeah. And I'll be the guy. I'll be an older Joe, personality wise. Like, and I'll be the guy that's always talking about like remember when, or like Cobra will attack and be like, man, this reminds me of that time the Cobra attacked the pit back in '82. Do you guys remember that? And all the other Joes would be like, yes, we remember that. We were all there. That's when Grunt took a bullet in the face. Yes, we remember that. But like, that was good times. So that's my guy.
Do you remember that time when I was throwing hot dogs at Scarlet?
Exactly.
Snake Eyes out in the desert. Do you remember that?
Maybe that'll be my accessory. Maybe that'll be my accessory. You know what? Maybe that's it. I honestly didn't even plan that when we were talking about it earlier. I'll be an ex-Cubs hot dog guy that joined the Joes.
I got to ask something about the episode here.
Sure.
So Destro makes an AI.
Yes.
And a messenger hawk, but not an off switch for BIOK.
Yes.
Okay.
You've just nailed the logic behind most of Cobra's plans. You really, really have. Here's what I like about this Skyforce group right here. They're all different colors. Like in the spirit of those sub teams, like over in Transformers, like the aerial bots and stuff. Like they all had their specific like color. They're color coded, but they all have their own unique look. I like that. Also, his mustache is pretty snappy. So this is also reminiscent of, do you remember when the Vision took over the computers in the Avengers? We're going to go to commercial. Be right back. Hey, listeners, I'm not sure if you've heard the news, but Joe and Joe has started a Patreon, and I'm inviting you along for the ride. Go to patreon.com/JoeandJoePod and check out my page. Right now, there are 2 opportunities for you to help support the show. You can choose to be a Grunt or a Viper. Grunts get access to all the Joe and Joe episodes and early access to new episodes as they're created. Vipers get all that and access to my all-new spin-off podcast, Joe and Joe Illustrated, where I will be breaking down every single issue of the G.I. Joe comic books page by page in the deepest dive you'll ever hear on G.I. Joe. So go to patreon.com/JoeandJoePod and see what's happening over at the Fort Wadsworth Motor Pool. We'll see you there. Do you remember that when the Vision took over and kind of went cuckoo a little bit? Yeah, we're getting a little bit of that here right now too. And look at the animation. It is like we're just stock still photos of the Joe's battle platform. You know what I mean? Like nothing's moving on these screens. Yeah. It is hard to watch, man. It really, really is. So, Mark.
Yes, sir.
If you could be a member of the G.I. Joe team or Cobra, be a Cobra if you are, for all I care. You already named your kid after one of the Zaymot twins. What would you be and what could you be? All right. Well, we're losing Mark a little bit. Wait, hold on. Is he coming back to us?
I'm coming back.
Oh, you're coming back.
Issue
there. You got it. Not a problem. So if you could be a member of the team, what would you be or what could you be?
Well, I think going in the same theme as old style there. It would be sticking with man of the world kind of theme, and I could just be writing stuff down, and I don't know, maybe making smart ass comments.
Okay.
I don't know. A foil to shipwreck. I don't know.
So what would your military specialty be?
Maybe let's say journalism.
Okay, so you hang out with Scoop, much to your chagrin. If Scoop is the video journalist, you're like the newspaper journalist.
Yeah, I would just come with a pencil and a pad of paper, I think.
So you're like a newspaper journalist to kind of document, because you're actually in it for, you're not in it for the like monthly article about what's happening in the front lines. You're writing like the book. You're writing a long-term like book diary, photojournalistic diary thing, right?
Right.
You know what? You're Dennis Hopper from Apocalypse Now.
That would be the uniform that I'd pick.
Yeah, that's who you are. You remember he was a photographer that went with Kurtz,
yes.
And he kind of got roped in. So
yes.
you're that's who you are. You're
yes.
that guy.
Didn't he have a necklace of ears too, or something?
Did he wear that? I know there was one involved. I don't know if he had that on. I know it was a lot of bad stuff going on in that scene. So what would your name be?
You admit a human might be
Byline.
superior to you.
How about Byline?
I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Byline, welcome to Joe on Joe. I like that a lot. So you're like the long time, the long form journalistic attaché to the Joe team.
There we go.
Yeah. You often get partnered with Scoop, and you're secretly keeping an eye on Scoop because you knew that he was originally a Cobra spy and you don't trust him.
You told G.I. Joe
I'm like
secrets.
Yeah.
backstory.
Well, you know what, Mark, we're breaking up a little bit. So I don't know if we're going to be able to continue the actual interview part of the show, listeners, but I'm going to start talking about the actual episode. And Mark, if you clear up, you talk to me, okay?
Of course.
You got it, buddy. So we've got Destro and Cobra Commander once again bickering about how best to deal with BIOK. Some snow serpents. What are snow serpents doing in this subterranean? Like, where are they? Like South America? I have no idea what they're doing there. But we've got snow serpents. We've also got the Crimson Guard Elite that are attacking the Joes. They're all missing with every laser, even though the Joes are under zero cover. I'll give them this, though. They may not be animating this episode very well, but the level of detail on that photo of the Sky Raven is pretty dope.
It's not bad overall.
Yeah. Like
in terms of the detail, but yeah, the motion is just not there.
And that's, you know what, this is actually, I think this episode is a perfect summation of why most of these DICs are disappointing. It's not because of bad ideas, although, I mean, there's a lot of DICs that are bad ideas, but for the most part, it's not because of bad ideas. It's the money and the execution, you know, or bad designs, because the designs are some of these designs are just as good as anything else. You know, they match the toys, they look great. Like that's a still photo of all those Crimson Guards standing by that Tiki idol thing. Like, that is maddening to me. Totally maddening to me. Now, it's funny. This is coming at the end of what the box set is calling like season 1, right? So I'm wondering if in the production run, if this was like towards the end and they maybe were literally running out of money and like, where can we cut corners? Because there's so much of that corner cutting happening in this episode that it is shockingly obvious, you know, versus some other episodes that might just be a little rough on the eyes. Now, Mark, if we still got you, are you do you think your son, you're ever gonna like? Well, see, G.I. Joe's not even around anymore. Do you even have any of your old G.I. Joes still?
Mind if we go ahead and run this little program anyway?
Well, I mean, I have the first season.
No, but the action
DVD.
figures. The action figures. Do you have any of those left, or did your parents get rid of them?
No.
Oh, you don't have
they
any?
got rid of them a long ago.
Oh no.
No.
Okay, because I was gonna say, were you gonna let Xander play with them? And they're not available in store anymore, so that's going to be a hard thing to do.
I think you're a liar.
Indeed.
Yeah. So now this is where, I mean, I guess this. Okay. So we're at the point where you said there's some time travel involved. Do you happen to? Are you with us enough?
I think so. You're coming through a little clearer now, so
okay.
I think it's okay. So here's my thing. So BIOK just disintegrated into an emoji, which did not exist then. Nobody knew what an emoji was when this came out.
That's very true.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, we're talking about hacking. We're talking about an AI that wants everyone to like him and be popular, but he won't submit to one-on-one questioning with the leader of Skyforce, who is ready to ridicule him.
Okay.
And it just
I'm following.
Feels like deja vu.
It
I'm
really
just saying.
does. It does. Where would we possibly be a part of that right now?
I can't put my finger on it, but it just really feels like somebody had some premonitions or something.
Something might be, yeah. And if there's any hope of, forget it. I'm not going to make that joke. Shooting an airplane out of the sky. So, what's the Matt Groening connection that you had teased us with earlier?
Well, Matt Groening had years and years ago actually like literally to the camera angle shown our current president when he announced his presidential bid coming down an escalator. And I mean, it was literally like the same camera angle that we saw on the news.
Right.
There's been a lot of things over the years on The Simpsons that have had to do with, Donald Trump being president and, things that he's, done over the years. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like this, like the timing of this, doing the show now on Joe on Joe, and then, it just feels a little spooky to me.
You know what? It was very prescient to have you on this episode, because I know you and I share similar opinions, and that hopefully this country can get its act together and make some changes come this fall, everybody. So I think it's prescient to see that there's some bad guys doing some hacking, and only the good guys want to fight it. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I like how you put that.
Yeah. So we'll leave it. We'll leave the political talk for my personal Twitter feed. Anyway. Mark, this has been a pleasure. I'm sorry, listeners, we broke up a little bit towards the end, but guess what? That's what you get when you do live-to-tape podcasting. It's going to happen. But it's a sheer delight getting you on, man. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. Any parting thoughts?
So happy to be here. This, like I said, we both agree that the animation on this episode was just below awful, but the story was actually fairly decent.
Yes.
And it's I feel like too, like a lot of the writers over the years on G.I. Joe, all the iterations of it, they did kind of tackle things of the time and look to the future and things like that, to try to cover possible, scenarios and things like that, like I don't know, like in the first Joe movie, even, I don't know. Not going back to the political, portion of that, but
there were especially more in the Sunbow. I think the DIC stuff tended to deal with things like Heavy Metal's European grandmother coming over to kick Cobra in the butt, tactic wise, whereas Sunbow dealt with stuff like global warming. Like they did deal with that. They called it the ozone effect. They didn't know. They didn't call it global warming, but that's what they were dealing with. They dealt with
the weather weapon.
The weather dominator.
First,
they did tackle that stuff. I think there definitely was an element of not pandering to kids of the time, and I think that's missing in most of the DIC stuff. But this one was great. I think this was awesome, and it was definitely that danger of unchecked AI that comes to life in a Jeff Fahey looking BIOK computer,
I mean, because like at the time, what did you have? You had that, like that robot butler thing that you could get, from the Sears catalog or something. That was the extent of AI. Did
Rocky IV come out yet with his with his robot that wished Paulie a happy birthday?
That's the one I'm talking about. You look at that and you think, oh yeah, computers are never going to take over the world.
Yeah. Can't even get Paulie's birthday right. Well, this was fantastic. Mark, thank you again for being a part of Joe on Joe, man. I appreciate it so much.
My pleasure, man. And I'm looking forward to more and more episodes of all the podcasts.
Love it. Listeners, thanks so much for listening. And guys, everyone, remember, now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.